Hello Wolfpack. I suppose the main point of this video is to kind of get a grasp or try to understand what's going to be happening with Bitcoin in the next few months. And the way we can do that, now we look at technical analysis every Bitcoin video, we look at like what the market's going to do based off indicators. But one of the ways in which we don't look at too much, in which you can determine market trends, is by fractals and by the concept of history repeating itself. Now, people like to dismiss fractals as something that's kind of obsolete and something that doesn't really matter, but I will kind of challenge that and say that, the only reason technical analysis works is because things repeat over time and trends repeat and patterns repeat, and the way they play out is predictable. Now, using that logic, we can kind of understand that, well, fractals actually do matter, and fractals actually do occur, and things do repeat in the market. And so there's no reason in my mind why something cannot repeat. Now, obviously, whether it repeats exactly or not is very, very questionable. Now, the general idea of fractals is that a trend will repeat, and that means that something will kind of look similar but not be perfectly similar, because it just can't be, right? The market's not the same as it was back in 2014 or 2018. But I'm looking at these two dates in particular because, as you would know, and if you don't watch my channel, this is an introduction video. How are you going? But what I'm kind of thinking about Bitcoin is that I think we're going to be heading downwards towards a 200-week SMA, right? And that is this green line here. And there's multiple reasons behind that, but I won't be covering in this video, because this video is not about how we get there. This video is about, ways in, well, this video is not about why I think we'll get there, but it's about ways in which I think we can get there. So the 200-week SMA is my kind of opinion on Bitcoin, where I think we're going to go. Now, obviously fractals, we can't assume that fractals are going to play out differently to how they did previously. So using that logic, we have to assume that it's going to play out within the 4-year cycle. And the 4-year cycle kind of actually suggests that this will play out via December or by December, and within November 2022. And so, using that logic, and that logic was determined by the fact that, well, there's 1,400 days from bottom to bottom and 1,400 days from top to top in each respective cycle, and there's also 1,046 days between bottom and top in each respective cycle as well. So I could bring up a chart showing you that right now, but that explanation is just about what I'd show you. And using that explanation, we can assume that it's going to be 1,400 days from the bottom here in 2015 to the, not 2015, sorry, the bottom here in 2018 to the bottom here in 2022, right? 1,400 days. And so using that logic, we can assume, well, it's going to be in November 2022. So now that we've established that, we can look into how we'd possibly get there. And first and foremost, I want to be kind of clear with what I'm saying here. I do believe the 4-year cycle is still going for Bitcoin, and using this logic, we can assume, I've used that phrase multiple times in this video already, that a dead cat bounce scenario in which we depreciate slowly in about 6 months to a year to the 200-week SMA after the top will play out. And what we've done actually is we've kind of extracted the fractals, as you can see, purple's 2018 and orange is 2017 from the previous cycles after the top date, and that's what it looked like applied to the current chart. Now, first and foremost, what I want to be getting into is the fact that applied to these charts, and this is scaled slightly, we can see that they act out with support and resistance that is relevant to this day, with 2018 showing multiple tests of the same 30k support zone that is actually relevant in the current price action, and 2014 showing the same thing, right? And we can see that before the catastrophic drop to the downside at the very end of this fractal, in both of these fractals from 30k down to 24k or 22k, we can see that both of these were still holding onto the 30k support. And so this is one of the reasons why I think that these fractals are valid, not only because they are dead cat bounces within a 4-year cycle theory that is still playing out to this day, but also because they respect the same support zones and resistance zones that are still playing out to this day. And so that's interesting to kind of perceive here. Now, both of these fractals would represent that, hey, we could see some sort of dead cat bounce. In fact, we are already seeing it until around that March period. Now, what is interesting about that March period, and there is one more fractal I'd like to look at after this, what is interesting about that March period is that is the region in which the Federal Reserve might be raising interest rates. Now, for those of you who don't know much about interest rates, all you really need to know is that interest rates currently are very, very, very low. And this means that inflation is allowed to run rampant while the stock market is allowed to boom. Okay, if they raise interest rates, which they'll have to do eventually to combat inflation, that means that the stock market will likely enter a recession, or correct massively at the very least, and hence Bitcoin will go down, and inflation will be kind of fought on by the government, in which they'd fight inflation and ideally it'd go down. Now, if this happens in March, and this is happening in the UK, happening in Australia, and we're expecting it to happen in the US in March, if this happens, that means that there will likely be a correction across the financial markets, and hence Bitcoin will go down yet. Because as much as people like to say Bitcoin is a store of value, it's not actually yet. The ideal goal of Bitcoin is to be a store of value, but as of currently, it hasn't achieved that goal yet, and so it's very volatile. And so I do think there'll be a correction in the markets from March. And so that would kind of be the catalyst of this drop here. And using these fractals, we can determine that, hey, that drop is going to take place, and we're going to end up at the 200-week SMA, which is going to be around 24K by November. Now, I have one more fractal that I want to look at. Now, this is very linear, and some people might disagree with these fractals that I've just brought up, and that's why I have this extra fractal I want to look at right now. And this fractal, I would say, is actually much more important because it's much more prominent, and it shows us the shorter-term price action right now. So what we can see is we can go over to this period here, and this is, one second. Sorry, guys. And this is 2018. And so in 2018, my eyes are acting a bit funny. In 2018, we had... in this period here in around March through to around June 2018 or May 2018, what we had was some sort of dead cat bounce, right? And this was a period in which it looks actually quite similar, and we can draw similarities between September this year and this period from 2018. And so if we took a fractal from that region and applied it to the current kind of price action, in fact, if we took a fractal from the entire region, let's just draw this out a little bit, and applied it from the bottom, and we dragged that over to the current price action, now we'll see that this actually lines up quite perfectly, and this is the main topic of the video. Now, apologies for my throat being a little bit sore here today, guys. I've got a kind of COVID test coming on soon, and I think I might have contracted that, so I have a bit of a sore throat that I didn't actually have this morning. But applying this fractal just straight back into video, applying this fractal, what we can see, if we try to apply it properly, and it might take a little while just sort it out here, is that it's strikingly similar to what's been going on in the market since September and through to around currently right now. So look at that. I mean, that's what I call a striking resemblance, and we didn't really need to do much adjusting to bring it to that point. And using this fractal, this would determine that, hey, Bitcoin's going to come down to around 9,000 USD. Now, I don't think it's going to go to 9,000 USD. In fact, I'd label this part of the fractal irrelevant, right? But the point is that the current price action is following exactly what it did in 2018, and this is a very, very prominent fractal here. I mean, you can't deny the absolutely insane similarities that are shown in this fractal here, and using this fractal, which is insanely similar, right, we are seeing that Bitcoin could actually reach as high as 56,000 USD. Do I think it will reach that? No, not particularly. But the interesting thing about this fractal as well is it shows that the 48K zone is a relevant support and resistance zone, and so that's the invalidation point for Bitcoin, and we can come up and test that multiple times on this fractal here, and if we adjusted it perfectly, it'd probably fit even better. But this fractal right now is very, very prominent, and it does suggest that there'll be a long period of some consolidation here on Bitcoin. And what's interesting about this fractal as well is you know, if we've applied it correctly, which I would argue we have, it does suggest that, hey, we're going to see a massive bounce here. But what's important is that the FOMC, which is the Federal Reserve meeting, is taking place on the 17th of March, right? And on this fractal, we're seeing that around that same time period is the top here at 56K. When that Federal Reserve meeting does take place, the most likely outcome is for Federal Reserve will raise interest rates. As I said, that's going to lead to a stock market correction, and we can see that we just go downhill from there, and we correct on the stock market and probably correct on Bitcoin as well, and we drop straight back down into this 30K region. And so this is why in the past day, I've actually changed my view a little bit on Bitcoin. I don't want to be known for someone who thinks that 48K is the invalidation point anymore. What I want to be saying on Bitcoin is, hey, I don't want to do anything. I just want to wait and sit on my hands until the middle of March, until that Federal Reserve meeting. Because if the Federal Reserve does raise interest rates, even if we're up here at 56K, right, as seen by this fractal, there could be a significant correction that drops us straight back down into this consolidation range. And I think that Bitcoin is in an extremely risky position right now. And I think these fractals, although they might not be perfectly accurate, do kind of paint that picture about how cautious we could be being here on Bitcoin, and should be being, because, you know, this is very volatile market, and although these are fractals have been weighed and adjusted to the point where they're not really natural anymore, the percentage loss and percentage gain is still the same. And the fact of the matter is, if the market cap was the same in 2018 as it is now, we would have lost, and we would have gone from 66K all the way down to 9K. The bottom would have been at 9K. And so, could it happen again? Probably not. But the point is, the structure could still be the same. We could see a catastrophic dump after this kind of upwards period within the next couple of weeks here. So I suppose the point of this video is to kind of outline a few potential ideas, and all of which are leaning towards the bearish scenario. And I don't want to kind of spread fear. I'm not here to spread fear, but what I am here to do is spread caution, because I do think that going into a potential financial market recession, not only in Bitcoin but in traditional markets, is something that Bitcoin hasn't withstanded before, and it's something that we should be incredibly cautious about proceeding within, because these recessions can last years and years and years. like we saw in 2008, those markets didn't recover for a couple of years at the very minimum. And if we do go through something like that on Bitcoin, as I said, we've never had a period in time which Bitcoin has been around for something like that to happen. So it could very well send Bitcoin into a very low price valuation that not many people are expecting, including myself. And it could very well negate the TA and take us even below the 200-week SMA. So as I said, this video is not to be overly bearish, but it is to kind of alert people that, hey, maybe 40,000 USD, maybe 41,000 USD isn't the best price for Bitcoin. Maybe that actually isn't a low price, considering the global economy and the macro scale here. So something we have to keep an eye on. Of course, once again, I'm sorry for my throat being a little bit croaky, a little bit dull today, but I'm sure it'll be better by tomorrow and we'll be back into the video. So interesting video here with the fractals. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.